Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is February 25th and it's a beautiful day here in the Ozarks. It's supposed to get up to 69 where I live. Beautiful. After last week, it was so bitter cold. It is great to see that it's finally warming up. And thank you for coming to the RAMZPAUL show. We do this every Monday through Friday. We look at the news, discuss it, and we do it on 3 platforms: YouTube, Rumble, and X. And be sure to subscribe to each one. It helps me. Thank you. I appreciate that. And part of the show, what makes it work well, is the interaction. So if you have super chats or power chats or rants, in fact, that I just forgot to bring up my power chats. I knew I was forgetting to bring up something here. So I'm going to bring this up here. Power chat. Yeah, power chat. You can send day or night. And I'm just bringing it up now because I don't want to miss any. There we go. All right. All right. Oh, I already got a power chat. So this is a good one from Damien. Trump will lose the midterms because of fake paper America, degenerate Musk. I don't know. I honestly support what Musk is doing with Doge. I don't support Musk, his personal life and what he does, but it's one of those things. I think we need to all aspire to live a moral life, live properly. But I have found in my years, most people have skeletons in their closet. And so I try to be forgiving in that way. And Trump has skeletons. He's done things, morality, especially with sex. He hasn't been necessarily that wholesome. And obviously, Elon Musk is not either. I mean, Elon Musk has all these baby mamas all around. And I'm not a big fan of that. But Elon Musk has been an advocate to try to cut out government waste. He is an advocate for peace in Ukraine, which I support. And he is pretty much an advocate for free speech and allowing us to voice our opinions. Is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. There's a few things I disagree with him. I guess the biggest thing I had the disagreement with him was the HB1 visa thing. Remember that erupted over Christmas, whereas him and Vivek, they were saying we need more of these Indians in, and I don't want that. But otherwise, I think politically, Elon Musk has been pretty good. It's a breath of fresh air. But yeah, I don't wholeheartedly agree with all his policies. I don't think he's going to have hurt Trump. I think actually Trump's favorability is high. What Doge is doing is very popular with Americans, maybe with not federal workers, but with Americans. So I think that is I don't think we'll have to see in 2 years. Usually the party that's in power always loses in the midterms to the elections. That's just the way it's traditionally the way it happens. I guess I guess Canada kind of does the same thing. They have the Liberal Party and Conservative Party goes back and forth. And we're sort of that in America with the Democrats and Republicans. Everyone gets all excited when there's a new president. And then after 2 years, people get disillusioned. And then in the midterms, usually the opposition party gets gains. It depends how much so. Even Biden, in his midterms after 2 years, he lost Congress. It wasn't a red wave, but there was still, he lost to the Republicans. So that definitely could happen. And that's why the first 2 years, I think, is really critical for Trump to try to implement his agenda. But who knows? Maybe the Republicans can hold off in the midterms. And I don't think most people have a problem with what Elon Musk is trying to do, just identifying all this waste. I mean, for example, the USAID, he was able to get in there and show how that agency with tax dollars was really funding what we call the deep state and these NGOs that are anti-white, anti-Christian, and that's made a big difference. So I'm I'm excited with what Elon Musk has done. And again, I don't always approve of his personal life, but that's life, I guess. You're never going to get perfect people. But thank you for that. That was a power chat that Damien, thank you, Damien. I really do appreciate it. Send it before the show. And again, YouTube has super chats. Rumble has rants. And there's power chats, and Stream Elements has a tip feature too. I do appreciate that. Oh, and tonight's Tuesday night. Tuesday night, we have our roundtable. Those are so much fun at 7 p.m. I always look forward to that. And if you want to join the roundtable, just sign up for my Substack. I'll put it in the description here. And if you become a member, you can see the roundtable. And every Friday, I do exclusive content for my Substack people. But even if you don't want to become a paying member, if you could follow for free. And Monday through Thursday, almost every day, I put out an article. And so check that out. I've really enjoyed. I've been having fun doing those articles. So Tuesday, tonight's a roundtable. And then tomorrow night, I'm back with Z-Man. I got a lot of good feedback on that show. I really enjoyed working with Z-Man. I'm excited about that show going forward. So a lot of stuff happening. And thank you for that. Oh, I did have another request. One of my supporters from Finland, he wanted me to show you. He drives a truck, and he was just showing how he got stuck. And he said, oh, if you could share this, RAMZPAUL, I would appreciate it. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess we can do this. Let me just see if I got the right window. I don't want the entire screen. Hang on here. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to show this. Let me show. Present, share screen. It's a little different because it's not on my Microsoft tab. Is this it? Let's see here. No, wait a minute. That's not it. I'm sorry, Kim. I will have to show that tomorrow. I'm not really sure how to show it here. Somehow is kind of messing up a little bit, but he has a big rig he drives in Finland, and all the snow was pretty bad. Let me see if I can bring it up again, because he's a good supporter, and I do want to show this. So let me see. Maybe this, I'll try to open it up this way. Let me see if I can show it this way. There. All right. All right. I'll show it tomorrow, Kim. I'm sorry about that. So it's just being a pain right now. I just thought of this before the show. He said, oh, show this truck. I'm getting stuck. And I forgot until now. So anyway, I'll show it to you, Kim, later. I'm just tired of fucking around with this right now. So anyway, thanks for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on some of the stuff that's going on here. I think I'll start with some of the domestic stuff here first. I did an article about this. And this is Elon Musk. It's really amazing all the anger that was generated by Elon Musk he put out a memo just asking all federal employees that they need in bullet points. So just quick bullet points, what they accomplished in the previous week, and then CC their managers. And if you guys ever worked in the private industry, this sort of thing, I thought is just common. Everywhere I worked almost, you have to, at the end of the week, submit a status report. Sometimes they're a lot more detailed than this, so people can see what you accomplished, your manager, what you've been working on. So it's not like a draconian request that Elon was making, but let's just take a look at this.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated.
Why? This is bizarre. Okay, so she's infuriated, absolutely infuriated, to get an email from your boss asking you in bullet points to say what you accomplished in the previous week.
Getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination.
Yeah. That's how the world works, babe, when you're not in the government. You have to complete tasks. You have to be responsible. You can't just sit around and post on Facebook or Reddit or whatever this bitch does. I mean, it's not that unreasonable. It's not like Elon Musk demanded that federal workers no longer can take Christmas off while everyone else is celebrating Christmas with their families. The federal workers have to go in the office. That's not what he's saying. He's not even saying you have to work 60 hours a week, right? I did that in corporate America. Sometimes I was on a salary. I'd work 60 hours or some weeks more. And we had a big implementation or something. It was tough. I didn't get home much. He's not asking that. He's just saying 5 bullet points at the end of the week. Tell me what you did in the previous week.
This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce.
How is asking for a status report harassing and bullying and intimidation? This is so weird how disconnected. And again, there's like 3 million federal workers, and I'm sure some of them are really good people. I'm not saying they're all bad, but you really probably could cut that number by 80%. The federal workforce is mostly a jobs program where there's not much expected out of the employees. It's a great deal. It really is. Because always they've had great benefits. They get the best insurance. They get a lot of vacation time. And the job is not that stressful. It's not like the private sector where you have to perform and you're competing against other companies. And there's always a threat your company could go out of business or you could have layoffs. Your employer is not going out of business, the federal government. And the customer, what's the customer going to do, right? If they don't like what you do, tough shit. You get the money from the customer at gunpoint, right? In private business, you have to have the customer voluntarily give you money for the product you're giving. That's how it works. The government doesn't have to do that. The government says, no, you're giving us our money, otherwise we'll come shoot you. That's what it comes down to. So you got a really good gig. But it was always, oh yeah, but they get less than pay than the private sector. But that's no longer true. I was shocked. The average federal worker, this is average. So there's a lot of people that make more, makes $106,000 a year. So they're high paid. They get great benefits. There's not much demands put on them. And they should just be thankful. They got this sweet job. And then she's here bitching like, do 5 bullet points is harassment to her. And this is just a sense of entitlement of these federal workers that they become, so many of them have become like crybabies. It's like, what the hell are you thinking here? And a lot of the federal workers, they did aggressive DEI. It was a huge job program, especially for blacks, where they couldn't get hired on it elsewhere. And again, if you go to a post office, you see this. In Fayetteville, Arkansas, we're a very white area for the most part, although we're getting diversity now. But the post office is all black and they go really slow. And this is what has happened.
Which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, my coworkers as well.
So she's really angry. And there was an article in Political yesterday that not only were the employees traumatized, they're probably going to claim they have PTSD from this and will need therapy, for the president of the United States. And it wasn't Elon Musk. It came from the executive. So their boss said, I want you to submit a status report of 5 things that you did last week. That traumatized them. Not only them, but they said it traumatized their families. So the little kids at home were traumatized because daddy had to take, how long does it take to think of 5 things that you did in the previous week? 45 seconds? Seriously, how long does it take to, it's like, oh no, I can't believe they're demanding some work out of me. Oh, and this is how they're acting. So now they're probably going to have to get therapy sessions and everything else. So it's just how out of touch they are. I mean, so many people would die to have a position like that, right? You know, I mean, just to be able to have a job that pays that well, and it's just really crazy. So yeah, Elon stirred the thing up quite a bit with that. And she's kind of right. Part of the reason is they don't know how to cut down the federal workforce because it's impossible to fire these people. So they're trying to do everything they can to get people to voluntarily quit. They offer them a buyout. They could get like 8 months salary if they just leave. They try to say, if you don't go into work, we can fire you. So they're doing everything possible to try to pare this down because it's way, way over bloated. And I'm not joking. If we were in a different situation, if this was a private company, you could probably slash 80% of the workforce, and the government actually probably run better. But you have all this bloat in there, and it's impossible to get rid of. So they're doing their best they can to get rid of it. All right, let's see here. What else I got here? Other craziness. I talked about this a little bit. This is the craziness of the left. This is Wisconsin. And what they decided to do is they want to, the governor, who's a Democrat of Wisconsin, they want to change words. It's kind of Orwellian because wife and husband, they don't want to use that word because that offends like homosexuals and their pretend marriages. And they want to get rid of the word mother. They don't want to use the word mother in Wisconsin. They want to use inseminated person. So instead of Mother's Day, Inseminated Persons Day in Wisconsin. And they want to get rid of the word father, and they want to get rid of the word man and woman. As I always said, it's funny, but at the core, leftism or wokeism is almost demonic. It's a hatred of nature, it's a hatred of men and women, it's a hatred of children. It's really bizarre how they just hate the natural order of things because they want this egalitarian equity society where there's no such thing as men or women. We're just interchangeable units. There's no such thing as ethnicity or race. There's no religion. The whole bit. They just want us all as cogs. And the fact that men and women are different. We have different roles. We have fathers. That's a role we should cherish more. And mothers are very important. And we have husbands and wives. They don't want that. They want inseminated persons. It is just so gross. It's really vulgar how they do this. But if the Democrats keep going this way, their party's in shambles. But whoever thought that this was a good look to replace the word mother with inseminated person, it is pretty, it's pretty crazy. But that's where we are. That is where we are. Did you see Chris Rufio's story about the Intel agency chance? I did. Let me see if I have that up here. I think I did a prep on that. Yeah, in fact, I have it right here. Let me bring that up. I do prep every day. So I do prep on all my shows except for Night Owls. There's no prep on that. Yeah, this is part of the problem that we have here. Yeah, and happy Tuesday, everyone. Tuesday's just one of those days. Is anyone like happy Tuesday? It's always happy Friday, weekend. Tuesday's always like, eh. But I like Tuesday. We have our round table. And let's see here. Here it is. Disturbing. Federal employees at the NSA, CIA, and DIA caught engaging in a secret sex chat room. So this is when they're working on your dollars. in which they discussed genital castration, artificial vaginas, sexual fetishes, and gangbangs, all while they were on the clock and being paid by the U.S. taxpayers. So the rot and what I call the demonic degeneracy is infused in the federal government. And if I had my way, I would fire all federal government workers and start from scratch and rehire and try to get some good people. It's just where we are is like, how in the hell did we get to this place? And again, I'm not a prude. I understand, men like pretty women, and I understand the nature of life. That's the way it's always been. But there was always this idea you would keep that separate, and even things that you would do. So let's say if you had an affair with a secretary. Okay, I'm not condoning that, but that would happen. But it'd be something, this secret motel after work, trying to keep on the hush hush. There's nothing you would brag about, but it did happen. Not everyone did, but it did happen. Okay, I get that. I'm not naive. That happens. But you would assume that people in these 3-letter agencies that are supposed to represent the best of us, right? You think of the FBI, I think you think of Dragnet, serious men, white men with ties and suits that are, follow the law because we're all about the law and upholding the law and the Constitution. We're straight arrows. That was their image. But instead, not only have we seen that politically they've been corrupt, and we'll get into that, that's another story, that they try to destroy evidence, and then they try to frame people, they plant evidence, they try to prevent Trump from being president. So not only they have all the political corruption in these agencies, but these are just really horrible people. And I'm not really surprised because there's been a big push in DEI to bring in like a lot of homosexuals and other type of people. And homosexuality is just not the opposite of being straight. In fact, I don't even believe in homosexuals or trans. I mean, yeah, guys can have sex with other guys or do things, but I don't think you're born that way. As we've seen, that's been increasing is something that's really pushed on people. And I won't get into all of that. But all these sexual fetishes and degeneracy, and again, this sort of stuff always existed, but it was always on the fringes. It wasn't front and center. And now we got these people that years ago, maybe in the bowels of San Francisco in the Castro district late at night, in some underground club, you'd see some sort of weird fetish where they urinate on each other. I mean, gross, but whatever, that happens. Let's just isolate it. But now this is in the official government agencies. This is what they think is a good look. While working, and again, these people all make over $100,000 a year, great benefits. These are the people that are traumatized that they have to do 5 things they did the previous week. If they have to do a report, 5 bullet items, what did I do the previous week? They're like, I'm traumatized. But while on work, they're in the secret chat talking about castration. I see that's a fetish. That's that whole trans thing is mostly a sexual fetish, artificial vaginas, gangbangs, and all sorts of degeneracy while on the clock. And they all make over $100,000 a year. They all vote Democrat. They all do their pride parades. This is the corruption that's in our government. Just not on a political level or a level of like stealing money, and that happens. But personally, these are really bad people there. And it's shocking that has happened. But sadly, this is where we are. And, I get it. When I was in the office, sometimes guys would flirt with the secretary or whatever. But, hey, let's get into a chat. Well, what's the chat about? Well, we're going to talk about gangbangs and sexual fetishes and castrating little boys. We'll get off on that. I mean, who does that? I mean, my God. I mean, this is like on work. At work, they're doing this. I guess it's good because they're not hassling while they're doing this, while they're having their sexual fetish, homosexual fantasies in chat. the FBI's not hassling innocent people. Maybe that is a good thing. So, but what the hell's going on there? I would have liked to seen their status report, their 5 bullets. What did you do the past week? Oh, I was in a chat and we talked about gangbangs. We talked about castrating little boys, and we talked about urine fetishes. And let me see, what else did I do last week? At least they could put that. They know what they did last week. So, yeah, this is pretty disgusting. But yeah, this is your government. This is what has happened in the government. It is, boy, it almost needs to be deloused. They should, like have those uniforms on, like a toxic uniforms where you're trying to protect yourself, and just spray it all out. It's pretty gross what has happened there. But yeah, thank you for that super chat. It is pretty disgusting. So this is what has happened there. Your government at work. All right, let's get through here. I'm going to focus first today on more domestic stuff because I've been on the Ukraine stuff and Russia because that's been in the news. And we'll have a little bit to talk about that, but I want to talk a little bit about some other stuff. This is a guy I used to be real excited about, but on Christmas of last year, the bloom kind of went off the rose because he got into this whole H-1B stuff. We need to replace Americans with Indians, and I guess Americans can work at Panda Express or something. So anyway, he's running for governor here. So here's Vivek.
To bring down the income tax eventually down to 0.
That'd be nice.
Because you deserve to keep what you earn.
To get the income tax to 0, we will need to get the money via tariff. So yeah.
It's your money, not the government's. We need to bring down property taxes in this state immediately. Eventually down to 0.
That's one nice thing about Arkansas. Our property tax is fairly low compared to other states. I don't know how other people make it in other states.
If you own land, it should not feel like it's a lease from the government. And yet so many Ohioans are paying as much in property taxes as they are on principal repayments on their mortgage. That is wrong, it is un-American, and it will end one way or another on my watch as your next governor.
So those are all popular positions, and while I have some reservations with Vivek, if he's the nominee for governor for the Republicans, definitely he'll be better than the Democrat. So, but what he's saying, it is just amazing how much the Overton window has moved, at least economically. The idea that we would be talking about eliminating the income tax on a serious basis and eliminating property tax, that was like a libertarian fantasy back in the 80s and 90s that was just out there. And now they're really talking about it. We'll see if it happens. God, I hope it happens. Shit, I have to fuck with my taxes I was just doing that yesterday all afternoon. I hope it happens. I really do hope it happens. And so that is good. Now, am I 100% on board with Vivek? No, I'm not a big fan of the whole idea of the H-1B visa thing. I disagree with him on that. But at least financially, I do support him. So, and Trump supported him. He gave him his endorsement. So, that should be interesting. I know Vivek, he has plans probably, because you remember he was running against Trump. But he said early on he was part of the MAGA movement, even if it wasn't Trump. And he's good friends with J.D. Vance. So it's sort of the new young blood of the Republican Party. And it's how much the Republican Party has changed because of Trump. This is sort of mainstream now in the Republican Party. Whereas it wasn't that long ago, the mainstream Republican Party 20 years ago were like the Bushes, the Romneys, the Lindsey Graham. It's just amazing how much has changed, how Trump's been able to change the conversation. So the Republican Party does have a lot of good young talent, and the Democrats, they're lost. They're talking, they don't even like the word mother anymore. They want to replace that with inseminated person. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. All right, And then we had this, oh no, a black woman that, only got the job because she's black. She got let go on MSNBC. I don't watch TV. And I'm not saying that as a flex or a brag. Sasha and I, we literally don't have broadcast TV. We have the internet. And as part of my phone plan, I get like Netflix, and we can, we get to everything on the internet, but I can't remember last time. We don't have a television where we turn on and watch like the local news or sitcoms. I have no idea. And so a lot of these shows I just don't watch, but I'm aware of it just because of the internet. And really, she looks like she could be a man there. If you told me this was some black guy, I would believe you. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying that realistically. So, but let's listen to her here.
My show had value, and
well, her show got canceled on MSNBC, and the only reason they had her on in the first place is diversity. They wanted some empowered black woman on there, and people didn't want to see it. People don't want to hear a black woman screeching for 30 minutes. No one wants that. But they put it on anyway, but now they figure they got to make some money. And MSNBC, by the way, just targets the left. So this wasn't even attracting their base. So MSNBC, they're like Fox, the equivalent of Fox News. If Fox News, they try to get the conservatives to watch them, MSNBC, the shit libs. So the shit libs weren't even watching her. Now they can say they support her and this is racist. This is, we're silencing black women, which would be nice. But like you can do that. But they weren't watching her.
And that, I'm sorry.
And this is the thing that is kind of a con in general, getting back to what leftists say or the woke say they do versus what they do are very different. For example, they claim they love diversity in rich areas, but they tend to live, if they have money, in all white areas. They claim, like, just even little things like modern art. It's so you have a toilet full of shit, and that's the art exhibit. They will, in order to try to fit in, say, oh, they just love that type of art. But then they really don't go watch it or look at it unless they get virtue signaling points. They don't really like it, but they're expected to. And so this is sort of the similar situation. They have the show, This Is Bad, and they don't watch it, but they claim they want to show it. So, I mean, she's made millions on the show. She's now trying to cry like we're supposed to feel sad about that.
That what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not.
Well, she could still do it, right? I'm not picked up by Fox News. I don't have a network. She could just start a YouTube channel. She can do her value. She can do her act on there. Why not? She can get super chats.
Not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And then it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you.
Oh, she needs a tissue.
Where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a mom or a dad that was killed, or.
So she was a race hustler promoting the lie that blacks are killed by police for no reason. That's not the situation at all. In fact, whites are shot more by police than blacks. It's that blacks are engaged in more violent crime. That's the reason.
When we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted, and not just black folks, or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did.
They came illegally.
And try to make a life and defended them. Or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that Nicole Hannah-Jones put into our spirit, that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about.
This is where she thinks blacks made America because they were basically farmhands that picked cotton, that thing.
Any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And where I come down on that is I'm not sorry. I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things.
She's framing this in an interesting way, in a fantasy way. The left, they really always have this view that they are the little guy and the establishment are these right-wing fascists, but it doesn't exist, right? They control the establishments. MSNBC is a shit lib organization. Most corporations are. They are not controlled by the right. I don't know if they ever were, but they haven't been in my lifetime. It's just been a myth. It's just a myth, Mr. Monopoly Man, like Mr. Burns on The Simpsons, the evil conservative controls the corporations. That's not it. MSNBC's all about child sex changes. They're all about promoting homosexuality. They're all about anti-whiteness, promoting the blood libel against our people. That's all they're about, 100%. So, but she's trying to frame this because she took the radical position of this race hustling for blacks and pushing all this nonsense, that somehow she spoke truth to power. She spoke up against the evil man, and the evil white man put her down. Well, no, MSNBC did. They're all shitlibs, right? And so it's the worldview. They like to see it this way, that they're the victims. She got canceled because no one watched her, is a problem.
Are of God. And I'm a church girl too, and those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my.
So this is her cope or whatever, because she had low ratings. She's trying to say that she was let go by a shit lib corporation because she was doing basic bitch talking points that the left does. Like, yeah, okay, that's really really out there. So yeah, oh well, she won't be missed, and no one's stopping her. She can get her own YouTube channel if she wants to do her thing. I don't think anyone would watch, but if she wants to do that, that's what Tucker did. She can go on X, do a show, whatever she wants to do. All right, some other news. So there was that, and the usual suspects are saying it was racism. All right, FBI, I guess when they're not in secret gangbang fetish chats, they've been busy. They haven't been able to be in those chat rooms all the time. They are now permanently erasing files that may be connected to Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know what was going on with Epstein, but he definitely had powerful connections. And a lot of the deep state, they're trying to destroy evidence now that Trump's in. And I've seen this multiple reports that this is what is happening. They're trying to hide what has happened. And I've also read a lot of the FBI agents are fearful now. Patel's in there, Trump's in, and I think they've engaged in potentially illegal activities. And a lot of the FBI agents are worried that they could face criminal prosecution. Oh, wouldn't that be funny? They got a 4 a.m. raid on their homes, and U.S. Marshals and SWAT gear. Turn the tables on them a little bit. That would be hilarious. But they're starting to worry about that now. So interesting how that is turned around so quickly. All right, we'll do some good news. Some white pills. I don't think we give a lot of these things we just take for granted, but I think this is a good one. Tim Cook of Apple, the Apple CEO, as a proud American company, we're thrilled to continue to make significant investments in the United States. Today, we're offering a $500 billion commitment to support American innovation, advanced manufacturing, and high-tech job creation. So This is already an success of Trump because Trump was threatening tariffs on corporations if they, and here's Trump talking about it, if they move their production overseas. So this is like a real world example of how tariffs or the threat of tariffs can actually help Americans and create good jobs here. I don't know if they may have to do a status report at this job, so I don't know if government workers should go to it, but Apple has just announced a record $500 billion investment in the United States. The reason, faith in what we're doing, without which, I love how Trump actually, he does his own tweets because he's talking about a witch. Is that like, is that a warlock? Are we talking about Styx Hexenhammer? Or what are they talking here? There wouldn't be investing 10 cents. Thank you, Tim Cook and Apple. So something about witches and that's okay. I like that Trump actually writes his own post. So that is kind of, that is good to see. So this is how tariffs are work. This is the idea. Businesses, if you increase the cost of the business to them send factories overseas, they will. Because they do it overseas, get slave labor where it's cheaper. And here in America, it costs more, but it hires American jobs and hires Americans, and that improves the community. So I think that's a good thing. So good for that. All right. Just kind of catching up on this happened a week or so ago. And we're still getting, I haven't heard what the official cause. You remember that plane, the Delta plane that tipped over? And there's a lot of people are saying this is probably pilot error, which I don't know how that would happen because, again, usually the computers do all this. But the pilot who landed the plane upside down at Toronto Pearson Airport is a 26-year-old female who just got certified as an airline transport pilot last month. DEI strikes again. And allegedly, Kendall Swanson identifies alleged pilot of the Delta flight that crashed upside down in Toronto. And I don't know if anything she did, but this is a problem when you have DEI, is like, was there maybe a white man who was better qualified that Delta would not hire because they wanted more diversity, because somehow diversity is a strength. Well, how is landing planes upside down a strength? I don't see that as a strength. But they were committed to all that type of stuff. And Delta is, like a lot of corporations, they were big on this sort of thing. And let me just show you how they drank the Kool-Aid on the diversity bullshit. And when they mean diversity, this is where you don't hire the best people. You hire people based on race and sex and sexual perversion. And it's a progressive stack. So blacks have more value than whites, women more value than men, homosexuals more value than family men. This is how they rate everything. And here's some of their ads.
Delta's a winning organization. And so we want a winning workforce. And we know a winning workforce means being able to attract the best and the brightest talent from everywhere.
Well, that sounds good, but that's not what they're doing. With DEI, you're not getting the best talent. You're getting the talent based on, again, race and sex. And it's interesting how they frame that.
Are we missing out on some great thinking, some great people, some great new pathways to discovering brilliance that may not come the traditional path of a college degree?
So what they're doing here is, if they do it based on intelligence, they're not going to, she's basically, and this is the whole diversity thing, if they just did it based on competency, they want to have that many blacks in the workforce. And maybe they're missing a brilliant innovation from a potential black employee. But we can't have standards because maybe this guy actually has it. That's what they're getting out here.
A premium was placed on education at a time when education wasn't actually provided for all.
So this is a myth that somehow blacks weren't allowed to get into universities, or women. And by the way, over 50% of the students at universities are women. It hasn't been. And when's the last time blacks were refused to be in university? It's an inversion of the truth. If you're black, even when I was young, that was an advantage. You'd get into the university easier than a white guy. Even when I was young, in the 80s, it was that way. So this is all the bullshit myth. Again, they're stuck in the old civil rights era, that you have these brilliant black kids just doing amazing things in schools, but for no reason, but that because they're black, they're excluded from getting into college. And it's actually the opposite. You get these dumb shits that can't even read, but because they're black, they're put into college. But they're perpetuating this lie. It's really a blood libel. That's what they're trying to do. So they're saying because we had all these brilliant black kids that we prevented getting into college, we got to lower our standards because we're just missing their brilliance.
People without degrees, they often don't have access to great career paths or increased earning over time. And
now, some of this I agree with. I think the degree has become sort of useless. Ironically, the opposite reason what she's saying. I'm saying it's becoming useless because they have people, even universities, that get their degrees, they can't even read, but because they're the right racial group or they fit the profile, they push them through. So the university diploma hasn't meant much anymore. Just because you have a degree, it doesn't mean you're educated or you're intelligent. They actually have what we call mentally retarded people at the university. I'm a member of Oklahoma State University. They would take mentally disabled people. And so it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean you're smart. It's just a diploma factory is the way it is now.
And that's what Delta is here to change. We're really proud that we've eliminated the required college degree in more than 90% of our jobs. It's plain and simple. Equity is the motive.
And equity is not equality. And again, when they say equity, that's a communist term. That equality is you treat people equal. You don't look at the race or sex or sexual perversion. You just see who could best do the job. They don't want that because if that was the case, it'd be primarily men and Asians. So they want equity where you try to make everyone equal because in their religion or ideology, all groups are the same. It's just not true. And as Ayn Rand always said, and it's true, I mean, you can deny reality. You can deny there's differences between various ethnic groups or even between the sexes, but you can't avoid the results of that. In this case, you have a plane flipped upside down. So this is what is going on there. All right, digging into some more domestic stuff, catching up on here. And thank you guys all for being here. And remember tonight, be sure to check in. We're going to have our roundtable. Looking forward to that. So be sure to check into that. All right, here we go. Got some other things. Fort Knox. This is one of those weird things. You always heard about Fort Knox. That's where all this gold is. But is it? I don't even know. And so Trump is suspicious there is no gold there.
Knox to make sure the gold is there. Are they going to know that? We're going to go into Fort Knox. Do you know about that?
So Trump wanted to get in about we're going to Fort Knox to make sure the gold's there. I like his aide, that guy in the background. He looks like was it Odd Job in the James Bond? Remember that? The guy that throw his hat and it would chop off heads. This guy looks tough.
Everything's fine with Fort Knox, but we're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there. Where would the gold have brought up? If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset.
Yeah, I don't think any gold's there anymore. It's kind of a dated concept because years ago, the United States the dollar was backed by the gold. And so Fort Knox kind of represented that. But under Nixon, we moved to basically it's a petrodollar based on oil and our agreement with Saudi Arabia. It's not backed by gold. Years ago, if you had a dollar bill, theoretically you could change, turn that in and get the equivalent in gold. But we haven't done that for like over 50 years now or something. So I doubt they have the gold there, but that should be interesting. I hope they do that. Maybe they'll live stream it. It would be, it'd be interesting to see that. It'd be interesting to see that. All right. Let's see here. The immigration stuff. The Trump administration is still battling the usual suspects on that. And here we go. This is Secretary Kristi Noem. She's the one that found supposedly killed her dog. Was it Pickle or something? I don't think she really did that. She put that in her book. She lies by a lot of things. Remember she was running for president, and then she claimed she met the leader of North Korea, and that was a lie. And then that whole Pickles, was that the dog's name? She claimed she was like girl boss and killed it because it was a bad dog or something stupid. I don't even think she did that. I think they just put that in to make her look tough. I'm not a big fan of hers, but she kind of looks like a generic e-thought where her lips are all, is that Botox in there? I don't really like that look, but anyway, she's a Secretary of Homeland Security.
Some leakers. We are continuing to get more. They will be fired. There will be.
The leakers are the people when the ICE was going to arrest some Venezuelan gang members. Some people, probably in the FBI, tipped off the criminal gang members.
Consequences. And remember, when they leak information to the press in order to blow an op, they are putting law enforcement lives in jeopardy. They are risking their lives and putting their families in the position where they have to live without those individuals any further. So
just like Pickles, they'll be dead.
You bet. We have used every tactic that we have. If you remember, we talked just last week about how I'm using polygraphs.
Polygraphs don't work. That's kind of a joke, but whatever.
To go after and to really interview these folks.
There's a show that was called Bullshit, and was it Penn and Teller, I think, did that? It was pretty good. They would go over just common things like urban myths, or is it really true? Or was it Mythbusters? No, it was Bullshit. And they actually looked into it. And polygraphs, you might as well have tarot cards or something. They don't really work.
Folks, because we are a national security agency, I have that tool I can use. Also looking at their emails, looking at their communications. And it's amazing how these bureaucrats who have an agenda to stop the work that we're doing to bring safety to America, how they will sell each other down the river if it's just to protect themselves. So don't worry, I am doing everything to find these leakers and to get rid of them so that we can do our work and our law enforcement officers and agents can do it safely.
I think she could be an e-thought, don't you? She kind of has that e-thought look. She could be a maybe baby mama in the future. She's got that look too. So, yeah, they're going to try to track down the leakers. So that's what they're doing there. Kristi Noem. Let's see here. Some more about immigration. This is Elon Musk. Speaking of Elon Musk.
The Biden administration sent any possible money that they could if there was money they could send to facilitate and amplify illegal immigration, they sent it. Okay, they took money from FEMA meant for helping Americans in distress and sent that money to luxury hotels for illegal immigrants in New York. That is an outrage.
That is. I mean, people should go. Actually, it's treason because we have laws in this country in the Biden administration. And yeah, I know Biden was a vegetable, didn't know what's going on. He shouldn't have been president. But people, that's why he pardoned everyone. It's so funny, the whole Biden administration, he pardoned everyone, record number of pardons, and then snuck away in the night. Yeah, this is criminal what happened.
They actually did that. And not only that, even after the president signed an executive order saying it has to stop, the FEMA, the sort of whatever deep state bureaucrats still pressed send on $80 million last week to go to the Roosevelt Hotel in New York and other places last week. And now they're mad that it got stopped, and they're like trying to sue to have it be restored. It's like the gumption is.
You think they're creating a new voter class? Do you think that was the goal when they opened up the borders for 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's just not the voting; it's deeper than that. After World War II, because of you know who and everything, there were certain people that determined that white people should never have their self-determination again. You shouldn't have any white countries anymore. And we have to breed them out of existence and make sure that we flood their countries with non-whites. That was not by accident. That was the plan. And you can see them talk about it, right? And that's what they've been doing. And they use various excuses. Oh, because of war, refugee. Oh, climate change. We got to bring all these people in or whatever. And so it's deeper than just trying to get people to vote for Democrats. So that does occur. That is part of it. And it's deeper than just getting cheap labor, although that's part of it too. Fundamentally, it's about eliminating whiteness. And how do you eliminate whiteness? You eliminate white people. How do you eliminate white people? Because white people are pretty smart. They have a lot of technology. Well, you need to subvert them. You got to try to breed them out of existence. You got to make it so they don't have a homeland like Germany. You got to demoralize them. You can't have a place like Ireland. You got to flood Ireland to try to eliminate the Irish people. Or what you do, bring in a bunch of Africans into Ireland and say, oh, they're Irish now. That's what you need to do. So it's really fundamentally even worse than Elon Musk understands it. It's really a genocidal policy that they've been implementing. And there's other aspects to it. Yeah, it helps the Democrats win elections. And yeah, it's you get lower labor. But primarily, it was genocidal. I think the primary motivation for it. Now, not everyone may be aware of that, but the people that were behind this, at least the Soros types, they understood. This is what they're trying to do.
Create a new voter class, get them citizenship, get them in. Green cards, vote.
A lot of these things, like you don't actually have to assume some grand conspiracy. You just need to look at basic incentives.
Benefits.
So if the incentives, fundamentally, if the...
And see, when it's not a conspiracy when they admit it, and they admit it, right? It was sort of like COVID-19 and the Great Reset. Schwab wrote a book about it. It wasn't a conspiracy. And so a lot of this is not secret or secret meetings underground where they wear masks or, anything like eyed wide shut or anything like that, where they're in the Bohemian Grove and they're secretly meeting. Mostly they're communicating this in public. They're just saying this is their goal. We need to eliminate whiteness. We shouldn't have white countries. And they try to make excuses for it. So it's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy. It's just a stated objective. I mean, sometimes it's not good optics for them, so they say other reasons, but that's the primary motivation for it.
Probability that an illegal is going to vote Democrat at some point, whether it's cheating, but eventually they can become citizens. But if the probability is like 80, 90%, you can just look at California, which is supermajority Dem, and then the incentive is to maximize the number of illegals in the country. That is why the Biden administration was pushing to get in as many illegals as possible and spend every dollar possible to get as many, because every one of them is a customer. Every one of them is a voter.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing was a giant voter importation scam.
Pretty obvious.
Very obvious.
Yeah.
And then they actually created the CVP1 Border App thing, where they were, which is like where they would literally fly people in. It's not like like at the point at which people are being flown in at your expense,
sending planes,
building a wall
up,
doesn't
fly
matter.
them over the border.
Yeah, they're literally flying them in.
Yeah, and Elon makes a good point. What's the point of having the wall when you fly these people in? And I have people watch my show, some in the military, and some told me confidentially years ago that they were flying these illegals in, the Biden administration, into El Paso, and then they were shipping them off into your communities. And another thing they're doing And he would say probably, we'll see the rest of this, that it was trying to break up red states, but it's mostly they wanted to eliminate all white areas. So if they see an area, let's say like Maine, they're like, oh, it's almost 90% white. We got to change that. Or Minnesota, let's dump a bunch of Somalis there. So if you have a nice area, no, we can't have that. We got to import these people. That's what they wanted. I think part of the reason, because if they just dump them all in California, then there's a threat one day the country could split and they'll be in their own shithole country again. And so they were trying to, in a sense, put the cancer everywhere so that we could never go back to having a homeland. That was their goal.
No other country in the world would do something like this. Nobody is this stupid.
That's false. It's false. Most Western countries are doing this. Germany's doing this. Great Britain's doing this. France is doing this. Ireland's doing this. So I disagree that no other country would do this. Now, Israel won't do this. Russia's not doing this. China's not doing it. But sadly, most Western countries are doing it because the propaganda is so strong. Like if you want a homeland for your people, they've convinced you that's racism. And if you just want your people around you, your customs, your language, that's evil and wrong. It's wrong to want to be around people like you. It's evil if you're white. Now, if you're non-white, that's to be celebrated. We need to celebrate that. So if you were to say black and you want to have your special clubs are black only, or you want to have your own black homelands, or if you want to have your black graduation celebrated. But white, no, you can't do that because you're like Mr. Mustache Man. And they really brainwash people into believing that bullshit. It's starting to break, especially with the younger people, younger white people. It's starting to break a lot that people are seeing through that. But we're starting to, so that there is hope there. But we still have a lot of this where people just buy into the assumption that if anything, we can't as white people do anything for our interests. That's evil. This is why we always have to try to use proxies, right? Oh, we want to limit immigration into Europe because it's bad for the Jewish people or homosexuals. It never can be because it's bad for us, right? We got to get over that. It's a spiritual thing.
Stupid.
Yeah, and then we found that it was like $100 million contract given to some guy in London, actually, oddly enough, for the CVP-1 app. So they're flying illegals into the swing states.
Yeah.
And if you've got like a margin of victory of maybe 20,000 people, and you fly 200,000 illegals into that state, it's not going to be a swing state for long.
Change the numbers eventually.
Maybe
in 4 or 8 years, you're talking about
it's just a matter of time.
It's a long game.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So it might take like a year for an asylum seeker or something to get a green card, and then 5 years for the citizenship. It's an investment that is guaranteed to pay off.
Yeah.
Just a question of when.
They all remember who brought them in and who left them here.
Exactly.
Yeah, Musk is right. And that's why we got to get to the point that they're deported, and it doesn't matter if they are citizens. We have to get to that point too. Not only in America, but all of the Western world needs to get to the point where, like, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have been brought here in the first place. We understand it was done by, and we don't blame you. You don't want to live with your people in your shithole, but we have no responsibility of having you here. And the people that brought you in did it as a war against us. We are under no obligation to perpetuate this foolishness. Not only have we stopped that, but you that were brought here, we don't care if you're citizens. We're going to revoke that. You have to go back because otherwise we don't have our homeland. That's hardcore, but that's what you got to do. Not just in America, but in Ireland, Germany, Britain. It will have to be done. Otherwise, we don't have a homeland. This is basic for our survival as a people. We need to identify what the enemy did, what their strategy did. It was extremely evil. And we need to reverse that. Not to stop it, but reverse it. And punish the people responsible and make sure this never happens again. There's a long ways to go. And it looks near impossible. But hey, we have the richest guy in the world talking about it. So, and we're seeing so much change now. I'm more optimistic that at least there's a chance, right? I used to would say maybe there's only a 1% chance of this ever being fixed. I was really black-pilled. Now I'm not saying it's likely to happen, but now we're up to 10% chance. So 90%, it's not going to happen, but at least there's a chance here. So good for Elon Musk. And I started the show, someone asked about Elon Musk and his baby mamas. And yeah, I don't approve of that behavior. But who else will say something like this? Really? Who else gets this in the conversation? Just a few years ago, wasn't it Stephen King? He got censured in the U.S. Congress for saying stuff like this. So they're saying stuff now on the public stage that's just mainstream thought that just a few years ago would have got you canceled. So don't get too black-pilled. We've come a long ways, and this is huge. All right, let's do another immigration thing here. This is someone upset about the horror having going back to their own homeland.
No one is illegal! No one is illegal!
Well, yeah, people are illegal. You rob a bank, you're illegal. You're a criminal. If you break the laws, you're illegal. It's just that simple. So if you break the laws coming into this country, you are a criminal. Of course you are.
Viva Mexico!
And then they say, Viva la Mexico. Well, okay. There it is, south of the border. Go live there.
Viva Mexico!
So this isn't really well thought out. It's kind of a message that doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? So they're saying Viva la Mexico. There's just a second here. Yeah, Viva Mexico. Don't send us back. So it would work better, right, for optics, if I was trying to give them advice, is if they had American flags and said, yeah, we may be from Mexico, but now we're patriotic Americans. We love this country. That's why we left Mexico. That would be a better look. It's not a good look to start saying Viva Mexico because and waving the Mexican flag, because then it's like, well, you have your country. Why don't you go live in your country? But because it's shitty, well, your people made it that way. Why should we make our country shitty? You need to go back to your homeland then. It doesn't really add up, right? And it's like they're terrified going back to their own homeland. Why is that? It doesn't make any sense, because we're always told about white supremacy and how evil white people here are fascist. Well, go down to the Sun people with your people down in Mexico. Why not? Why not? I don't understand it. And this is a contradiction that comes up in sort of these protests. And it is pretty crazy here. All right. Oh, yeah. What Elon Musk was talking about is about when the New York City comptroller, Brad Lander, he was whining when there's 80 million, because President Trump said, no, we're not spending taxpayer money on putting illegals in luxury hotels. We should use that money instead to send them back to their homelands. That's just common sense. And the people in New York actually got real upset about that and threatened to sue to put criminals in luxury apartments. Here we go.
This is highway robbery. This is the federal government having already allocated, authorized, awarded, invoiced, and paid $80.5 million to the city of New York. And then Elon Musk, with no legal authority, seizing it back.
No, President Trump did have the authority, and the money, I don't care, Biden allocated our tax money to give to criminals. This is outrageous. When people in North Carolina were getting no FEMA help or very little, right? But that money was used to pay for criminals to live in a luxury apartment or hotel. Outrageous. And if the Democrats want to work on that, that's fine. They can do that. All right. Let me see what else I got here. Let's see if I can do something here. I wanted to see this. This is like So we'll get into some more stuff here. All right, here we go. We'll do Kamala Harris. Remember her? She is actually amazingly like the leading candidate to be the Dem nominee in 2028. It's way too early, but it's just amazing. She's still like the head of the Democratic Party. And here she is. She's talking about the fires in California.
Your mind when you see this, you're here, you're now seeing it up close.
And compare her to J.D. Vance.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
So she's in this new age babble shit. Oh, you can almost smell the toxicity and you can feel the negative energy, man. We need like healing crystals over here. And it's just ridiculous. I can imagine this woman was vice president and almost president. It is just so, this is so crazy. It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it, you can feel it. So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. Gosh, talk about an IQ 90 person running around, but this is where we are right there. All right. All right, here we go. Some more of the anti-white stuff that Democrats have been pushing. Here we go. This is what racism looks like. However, this same DEI standard has been applied to virtually every type of government funding for the past 4 years under Democrat rule. No more. Local watchdog group has filed a complaint against the county in North Carolina for allegedly discriminating against white-owned businesses for hurricane relief aid. And the complaint uses, the complaint showcases the use of race and gender-based scoring card to rank the priority of who would receive the $1.5 million in grant funding. So what they're doing here, what they did, is basically if you apply for aid, if you were white, you were put in the back of the bus and they would put blacks up front before whites. This is what they were doing. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was right. This isn't a one-off. This is anti-white behavior, has permeated our government, and it does need to be ended. It is horrible what has happened there. And this is what the Democrats have been pushing for. All right, let me just see here. Oh, here we go. Let me show you real quick here. Let me see here. Here we go. I finally figure out how to make this work here. And here it is. I finally, I was fighting with this picture for so long. Sorry, Kim. He's a friend of mine in Finland. And he says, show my truck in Finland. I got stuck. And I'm like, okay, I'll show your truck. I finally got it to work. Here it is. The truck here's Kim's truck in Finland. And he drives this. And it's a double trailer. And yeah, that'd have to suck driving it in this snow. So yeah, truckers, they are key. And thank you, Kim, for that, sending that to me. So that was bothering me. I was like, because I can show tabs easy within the browser, but with StreamYard to show some other file. I don't know. I was doing the wrong option or something. Boomer tech. All right. Let's see here. We'll do a little bit of foreign stuff now. Today was a little different. I did more domestic. I wanted to catch up on domestic stuff. But we got some foreign stuff too I want to cover briefly and try to explain this a little bit. On the war's third anniversary, the U.S. voted against a UN resolution blaming Russia for starting it. And J.D. Vance talked about this, and so did Rubio. The United States, well, France, Britain, and all this, they did a resolution condemning Russia's war of aggression or whatever. And Trump is in the process of doing diplomacy. And when you're in a diplomatic meeting, you don't want to have this sort of language that will unnecessarily muck things up, right? What he's trying to do is come to a resolution. So what happened is Trump put together, the United States, the government under Trump, they put together a resolution that says, hey, this war is bad. Whatever started it, that we can look into that in the past, but instead of doing the blame game, let's just end the war in a way that will work for everyone, because we need peace. This has killed potentially millions of people, is draining our treasuries. We need to get peace. We got to give peace a chance. Let's try to find a way that we can have a peaceful resolution. You would think this is what the left would years ago advocate for, but now they're opposed to this. And so this is when the United States did not come out in favor of Russia. They're just saying, let's don't blame anyone. Let's just say the war needs to end. Oh, Putin propaganda and all that bullshit. And as Rubio says, when you're in a negotiation, you don't want this to get in your way, right? So let me just use another example. Let's say if you have a dispute in a business or something, and it's not going to, before it goes to court, because court's expensive, you have a mediation where you just sit down and you have a judge there. It's not an official court though, it's a mediator. And they're just trying to get the two sides together. And they're like, okay, we have a conflict here. Let's see if we can work this out, right? Well, when the two sides get together, you don't want the mediator right off the bat say, okay, here's John, and then here's Sally. And John, before I start the mediation, we want to make it clear that, John, you're the guilty one. You're the asshole. So, okay, now let's start negotiating. That's not how you do it. That's not the way to do it, right? So you need to end that sort of virtue signaling. And that's what it is, right? It's just virtue signaling. And Nikki Haley, she put out something today and I commented on it. It was really immature. And a lot of our government it's just our leaders, we just deal in an emotional manner with things that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And let me just show you my response to, it was Nikki Haley. God, did we dodge a bullet not having her? But let me just show you this just so I can. America has always been a pillar of freedom and democracy. We have to have the moral clarity to know the difference between good and evil and right and wrong. We can't blur those lines. We must choose a side, and it should never be the side of dictators. Then I just replied that, life is not a comic book, grow up. And because what she's doing, which is common with a lot of these people, they put everything into a very cartoon way of looking at the world of good guys and bad guys. And real life tends to be more complex. Like, for example, Zelensky's a dictator. He's canceled elections. He's murdered an American journalist. He's arrested priests. So let's not pretend that somehow Zelensky is a good guy. But this is how they want to look at everything. Putin, he's just like Hitler, and Zelensky, he's like the rebellion in Star Wars. They put everything in these fantasy terms, which is cute if you're 12 years old, but when you get older, you got to have a little bit of nuance to work through this. And I'm getting really tired of how they do this sort of thing, and it really doesn't help matters, and it just gets into the way. And let me see if I can, JD Vance said this, and another reason I like JD Vance, he's a very intelligent man. I'm hoping he will be the next president. So much of American diplomacy has been pure performance. And an obsession with saying this or that. And this is true. So what it is, you got to say a phrase like Russia's war of aggression. That's a phrase. And someone said it and they all start repeating it. So to show that you're part of the hive, you will just start to parrot this phrase. But that doesn't really help with diplomacy. And it's not even about diplomacy. It's just trying to show other people you're signaling that you're part of them and you're going along with the program. The reason the failed establishment hates Donald J. Trump is because he chooses his words carefully. I don't know about that. And more importantly, is much more focused on doing. But what JD Vance said is 100% right. You have to look at these issues realistically in the real world and not get involved in this comic book wishful thinking like, oh, we're like Luke Skywalker and Putin. They're like the emperor, the empire, and the imperial forces like under Darth Vader. It's just silly. It's just silly. And in real life, there's a lot of complex issues, how this all happened, how the history of Ukraine and the Russian population and the Soviet Union and NATO. And it's a very complex matter in 2014, how we conducted a coup and how some Russian citizens were burned alive in Odessa. I mean, it gets very complicated, right? It's not, and I'm not saying the Russians are the good guys. I'm just saying in the real world, there's not really many good guys here. There's countries that have various interests. They've both done horrific things. What we're trying to do as an American president, what the American president should try to do is to have a deal that's best for Americans. And pissing our money away on a war in Ukraine that cannot be won unless we were to start World War III and have a draft and maybe have nuclear war and untold devastation. Otherwise, it can't be won. We can't win the war just by sending Ukraine weapons because Ukraine's running out of men. And you just can't manufacture men in a factory. It requires mothers, or I guess inseminated persons. It requires inseminated persons to create a person. And then it requires them 18 years to be big enough to fight in a war. So that's just a reality. In Ukraine, they're running out of men. And there's no way we can fix that. And giving more weapons is not going to solve the issue. So the war's lost. Russia has more men. And besides that, even the whole weapon thing is kind of a fantasy too, because our stockpiles are very low and we need to replenish them. And you can't do that overnight. And Europe has all this fantasy. They're going to make their own army and have their own weapons. And I'm like, well, good. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thought, but you're not going to be doing that in a year or two. We're talking decades-long project because Europe, they've deindustrialized because of the climate change hoax. And they've imported all these third world immigrants and they've become very weak. And so there's no weapons for Europe really to give to Ukraine. I guess theoretically they were thinking maybe they could buy them from the United States. So they buy weapons from us. At least we get paid. And then they go to Ukraine. Because right now, Zelensky's made it clear that he's a deadbeat and he's not going to pay his money back. We gave him. No, he's not paying that back. He made that clear yesterday. So we would at least get some money out of it. But we're pretty much out of weapons too. We're having to replenish, and we have other, we have other potential opponents like China and elsewhere. We just can't focus on Ukraine forever. And we have limited manufacturing capabilities too, sadly, because we're not as bad as Europe, but we started to deindustrialize. So Trump's trying to bring that back in. So there are no magic weapons. or shells, artillery shells. There's a limited supply of them. You can't make them overnight. They're pretty sophisticated with electronics. That's just reality. And even if we did have that, that's not going to win the war of Ukraine. So the point is, why are we fighting a losing war that's just going to lose more life and it's going to cost more money? What's the point here? To make you feel good? And that's really all it is. So the Europeans can have their fantasy that they're virtuous. As it's really, it's a shame. It's a tragedy to do that. We got to look at this more realistically and come to some sort of peace. That's what Trump is all about. At least the United States is not going to be part of Project Ukraine anymore. If Europe wants to try to fight with it, yeah, good luck with that. Again, they don't really have much of an army, and they don't have much ammunition, so that's not really going to happen. They want to try to get us involved, but we're dropping out of it, basically. And if Europe and Ukraine, they can accept a peace or not. It's up to them. But I think Trump wants to normalize relations with Russia. Not that we're best friends with Russia. We don't need to be enemies. We can trade with them just like we do with China and everything else. And Eastern Ukraine is not a fundamental interest to the United States, right? There's a long, complicated history there. We're not the world's police trying to sort this all out, and we shouldn't be. So Trump is taking the advice of George Washington. Let's stay out of these entanglements. We got to focus on the United States. So that was what happened the other day. So there's a lot of people crying about that because of the UN resolution. I mean, they're all useless anyway. Who cares? But that's where that was. All right. It's been a good show today. Thank you. I'm going to wrap it up here. And tonight, Tuesday night, we have our roundtable. Be sure to look for that. If you're part of Substack, I'll create that soon here and post a link on Substack. And that'll be 7 p.m. tonight. That'd be a lot of fun. I always love the roundtables. It's kind of informal. We talk about stuff. So looking forward to that. And guys, thank you so much for being here today. Tomorrow's Wednesday. We have another RAMZPAUL show at 11 a.m. You want to be there. And then Wednesday evening, instead of just doing a news recap, because I kind of do that anyway, Zeman and I are going to talk more big brain topics. We're going to talk about Nixon, how it relates to the current situation. So Nixon, I remember him when I was a little kid. So we will talk to you guys later.